Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time for some makeup comparisons. Today is all about concealers and powders, and it's all part of my Panning for Gold series here, where I go through my makeup collection and I pluck products out that have similar claims, and I pit them against each other in head-to-head comparisons over a period of time so that I can figure out which ones are the true gold nuggets of my collection. Then I report back anytime I strike gold, or strike out, as might be the case today. But this quest for gold isn't just fun, it's also high stakes because I aim to declutter anything that isn't a gold nugget. As always, I'll include timestamps so you can simply hop, skip, and jump to whatever's most relevant for you. Today's contenders in the concealer category are a drugstore cream concealer from Neutrogena. It's the Hydro Boost Hydrating Concealer, and this one is going up against a French brand. This is a clean, organic beauty brand called Couleur Caramel. Both of these cream concealers claim to have a natural finish, buildable coverage, and hydrating formulas. I had never heard of the brand Couleur Caramel before because this was decluttered to me from a friend, so I decided to do some research first, and that is where I found out that this was a clean beauty brand. Let me just read you the description from their website so that we're all on the same page, and it's a rough translation from me, so you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt. But their website said that it was made of carefully selected organic ingredients to calm irritation, very good, contain precious hydration, very good, and important nutrients that revitalize the skin. Very good. That all sounds great. So that's what I had in the back of my mind going into this comparison. The Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Concealer, on the other hand, does not claim to be clean, but it does claim to, and I quote, have a non-greasy, lightweight formula that glides onto the skin with a unique hydrating core designed to instantly quench skin. And apparently, this core contains purified hyaluronic acid. Does that mean that other brands are giving us dirty hyaluronic acid? So does that then in turn make this a clean concealer? In any case, I thought these concealers had similar enough claims that they would be interesting for comparison's sake, and that they were. Let's begin with the Couleur Caramel. This formula, when I first started testing it, it felt really stiff, it was difficult to blend, and I felt like it just kind of sat on top of my skin, and I was generally very unimpressed. But I'm the type of person, when I meet a product that's not working for me, I automatically assume it must be user error. So I kept trying to find different ways to make it work, and I kept trying, and it kept not working for a while. And then one day, I noticed this was looking beautiful on my skin, and it was suddenly very easy to blend. And I was very confused because I couldn't think of anything that I was doing differently. And then one day, I was talking on the phone and playing with makeup, and I was on the phone with my mom, and she asked me how the weather had been. And that's when I realized it, because it had been so hot here. And I realized the formula changed when the weather changed. I don't know if that's because this is a clean concealer, but here's all I'm going to say about that. I completely understand why some people prefer to or even need to use specialized products or even organic ones. I also have intolerances, so I can relate. But if a product doesn't work or it doesn't work consistently, I don't care how clean it is, it's not worth my time or my money. And this product doesn't work at room temperature in the winter or the spring, which is kind of a huge strike against it. Strike two came when I started liking this product so much that I decided I would use it as a foundation, and I just smeared it all over my face. And by the end of the day, boy, did I regret that, because my face exploded. It looked like a new island nation was popping up all across my face, on my forehead, on my cheeks, on my nose, everywhere. This triggered my rosacea like nothing ever has. Does that violent outbreak mean that I think this is a dangerous product? No. Rosacea triggers are highly personal, and any individual can react to completely normal, safe ingredients that no one else reacts to. So I don't think this is particularly harmful, but I do think it's an important reminder that no matter how clean or organic or natural, or in this case, calming, a product claims to be, that doesn't necessarily mean it's safe for our skin. And as clean as this one claims to be, it's obviously not safe for mine. But that doesn't mean that if a family member or friend wanted to try this, that I would be unwilling to pass it on, because as far as I know, I'm the only winner of the genetic lottery in my family and the only lucky duck who got rosacea. So anybody who wants it, they can have it. All in all, this product worked beautifully. Well, when the weather was right, anyway. And it's just not for me. But I don't want to trash talk this brand either, because according to my research, they're putting in very genuine efforts to make every aspect of their supply chain as sustainable as possible. Their packaging, for instance, is really great. The pan in here is pure aluminum, so that can be recycled. This plastic part of the component is made of biodegradable plastic that you can actually put in the compost pile and it will decompose naturally. And the top is made from fast-growing bamboo. There are some magnets in here and a mirror, and I'm not exactly sure how that works. But as for the rest of the packaging, I feel like this is so much better than the majority of what's currently out there on the market. And I wish more brands would do things like this. I mean, just take Dior, for example. They're currently reformulating all of their makeup so that they can call themselves a clean beauty brand, which obviously we know by now doesn't necessarily impress me. But I just wish, as a consumer, that they had put those research and development resources into creating beautiful and sustainable, reusable packaging instead of clean formulas. But maybe that's just me. Rant over, I've gotten quite off topic. Let's get back to the makeup and talk about the Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Concealer. I felt like this one definitely lived up to its claims. It definitely felt lightweight. It did not feel greasy. It glided very well onto the skin. It felt hydrating. And I felt like this worked surprisingly well for maturing under eyes. All plus points. So it must be a gold nugget, right? Unfortunately, no. Although this is lovely, lightweight, easy to use, easy to spread, easy to travel with, and I can imagine this would be a great formula for a ton of people out there, it just doesn't have enough coverage for me. I've always had very dark under eye circles. Even when I use this together with a color corrector, it just doesn't do enough for me. Also, the finish isn't ideal for me. I have always had extraordinarily thin skin under my eyes ever since I was young. And that thinness to the skin means that all of the oil glands in my under eyes are visible. And that texture, I mean, it's not something that ruins my day, but it's not something I want to emphasize either. And I do feel like this does emphasize it a little bit. But I can imagine that some people would really enjoy the finish of this because it's hydrating looking, but also very slightly powdery, which kind of gives a softer finish. I struck out in the concealer department this time around, so that means it's time to roll into new concealers, and I decided to go with high coverage this time around because my dark circles are on a rampage. So I decided to pit the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer against the Jouer Essential High Coverage Liquid Concealer. So if you're interested in seeing the results of this battle, make sure you're subscribed and press that like button so that the omnipresent algorithm knows you want to see it. Now, let's move on to powders. I tested the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish powder in the shade 2. By the way, try saying that 5 times fast. Airbrush Flawless Finish. Pause the video, try it. I'll wait. If you could do that, then you are a much better tongue gymnast than I am, because watch this, ready? Airbrush Flawless Finish, Airbrush Flawless Finish, Airbrush Flawless Finish, Airbrush Flawless Finish, Airbrush... I can't do it. I'm a professional vocalist and I can't do that. I feel like such a failure. And for that reason alone, this, not a gold nugget. No, I'm kidding. But how much do you want to make a bet the marketing teams in these beauty departments, they're deliberately just sitting around devising tongue twisters for beauty gurus to say? I would not be surprised because if I were on the marketing team, that's exactly what I would be doing.
All right, marketing team, let's brainstorm. What product names can we think up for our new waterproof mascara?
Lashes,
Lashy lash? Slashy lash? Whiplash? Too short. Let's try a longer name to symbolize the longer lashes.
Lovely Lash Lover's Luscious Lid Wig?
That's it. Perfect. Can you imagine Tati trying to pronounce that name on camera? How many takes do you think she'll need?
But anyway, I keep on getting off task in this video. We already know what this one is called, and I pit this against the Estee Lauder Lucidity Translucent Pressed Powder, also in the shade 2. In the pan, both of these looked quite similar, and I saw the first differences when I swatched them side by side. The Charlotte Tilbury powder is much more finely milled, and the Estee Lauder powder, I wouldn't say that it's not finely milled, because it's not rough or heavy or chunky, but it did feel like it had more heft to it, almost like they're both very finely milled, but the Estee Lauder powder seems to have a little bit more filler in the formula. Both of these powders ultimately looked very lightweight on the skin, though, and both of them had about the same amount of coverage, which was really nice on some days, but on other days, I felt like the level of coverage these gave me was a little bit too heavy for my preferences. The finish of these is different. The Charlotte Tilbury powder is more of a matte. It's just a straight out matte formula, while the Estee Lauder formula has a very subtle skin-like sheen. I wouldn't call it illuminating powder per se, but just in comparison to a perfectly matte powder, this one did have a more natural finish. When it came to how they looked on the face over the course of the day, both of these powders were complete fails under the eye. If I used them to set my under eyes, these were a disaster. They looked heavy, they kind of crusted up. These just aren't made for me in that capacity. But on the rest of the face, I have to say both of them looked equally lovely. In addition to the slightly different finish both of these powders had, they had different longevity. I think the fact that the Estee Lauder powder was slightly more luminous ended up hurting its longevity in the long run. And on the best day, I got about 2 hours of wear out of it before I had to touch up. Whereas with the Charlotte Tilbury powder, on the best day, I got about 4 hours of wear. So this one was the clear winner in that department. So what's the final verdict? Well, I think both of these powders are lovely, lightweight, beautifully made, but I think this one is ultimately made for a different skin type than what I currently have. Maybe someone with less oily skin would be very, very happy with this powder. So I think I'm going to pass this one along to a new home, but this Charlotte Tilbury powder is a gold nugget. It even kind of looks like one. As for the new roll-ins, I'm pretty desperate to find a good under eye setting powder, and I've heard that loose powders are often better, especially for maturing under eyes, simply because those formulas contain less binding elements, making the formulas lighter weight. So I thought I would try pitting this It Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores powder, which, full disclosure, was sent to me by It Cosmetics, and I thought I would pit this against the Dermablend Professional Setting Powder, which I purchased myself. But when it comes to other powders, I want to roll some more in because I've got a couple of gigs coming up this summer where I'm just imagining my face melting off because it's going to be so hot out. And the Charlotte Tilbury powder, although I really like it, it has a little bit too much coverage for at least one of the gigs I'm playing. So I want to try some pressed translucent powders. And so I will be pitting this It Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores pressed powder, which I purchased myself, against this sample of the Makeup Forever Ultra HD powder. And so we'll see how these work across the whole face, maybe even under the eyes. If you happen to have a lot of experience with powders and you have any tips you'd like to share, feel free. Any help is welcome. I'm still new to having oily skin, and although I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of it, help from a friend is always welcome. So I hope you'll say hi in the comments. But even if you don't, I hope you have a great week and that we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.